before ooh, before I sort of crack on and tell you all about app marketing and all this stuff, I'm going to tell you a little bit about who we are and what we do and why we're standing here telling you about app marketing. Trademob, I work for Trademob, and we have a leading platform for growing your user base for maximum engagement and minimum cost. And basically, who we are, we have around 85 people. We have offices in Berlin, London, Paris, Madrid, and San Francisco. Our headquarters are in Berlin. We drink around 30 kilos of coffee a week because we work very hard and we have to stay both caffeinated and motivated. And we have a universal tracking SDK together with an optimization engine that helps our clients bring down their costs and bring up their lifetime values of their users. And just to give you some of the backstory, our CEO comes from the online advertising world. He had an online advertising network, and he sold that in 2010 and wanted to get involved in mobile because there was a clear problem with the tracking in mobile. So the kind of tracking that works online on desktop just doesn't work as well in mobile. Cookies and referrals just don't really cut it. So he sat down with our developers for about a year, and they developed the basis for the technology that we're using today to track and optimize. And if you ever meet him and you're a bit like me, you might think he's a bit reminiscent of a mad scientist. But that's basically what we do. And what do I do? Who am I? If you don't know me, a lot of you guys know me, but some of you don't. My name is Adrian. You may have detected an American twang there. I am not a native Brit. I'm actually from the US, but I've been living in England for 7 years and in London for about 6 months now. My previous role before I joined Trademob was at another app marketing company, and I was sales director there. And basically, I've overseen or been a part of hundreds of app marketing campaigns. So I feel pretty well qualified to give some tips about how to be really successful with your app marketing. And that's who I am. Just before we crack on, if anybody has any questions, please do use the questions facility. My colleague Rachel is based in Berlin. If you want to say hi, Rachel. Rachel.
Hi guys.
she's in business development, and she's going to be sort of keeping track of questions. So unless it's a really, really relevant question, I'm going to try to answer them at the end. So I'm just going to crack on through the information, and we'll do questions at the end. But do feel free to type in questions as we go along. And if it's really, really relevant, I'm happy to answer it at the time. Right. So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about all of the things you can do for your App Store marketing. And you've got basically 3 avenues at your disposal for marketing your app. 1 is how you build your app. 2 is how you list your app. And 3 is how you drive external users to your App Store landing page. And that's just kind of a roadmap of what we're going to talk about today. And to kind of get everybody's heads screwed on and to get us thinking about our objectives and what our purpose is here, I'm gonna conduct a little poll. So we're just going to ask, what is your main app marketing priority? If everybody could take just a couple of seconds and answer that, then we'll have a look at the results and just think about what are we actually trying to achieve with our App Store marketing. And while you guys are answering that question, I just want to take a second to say, yes, this is called the App Store Marketing Bible. And yes, we've called it the 10 Commandments of App Marketing. But these are really more the 10 suggestions of app marketing. Successful App Store marketing is a lot more about creativity and thinking outside the box, trying new stuff, seeing what works and doing more of that. As long as you have that kind of approach to your app marketing, you're going to have successful marketing. So these are kind of like guidelines, more than really solid rules here. I'm just going to leave the poll open for a couple more seconds to see if anybody else wants to vote. Okay, I'm closing the poll now. You're going to lose your opportunity to vote here. Oh, people are panicking and voting. Right, okay, I'm going to close this poll so we can have a look. Let's look at the results here. It's interesting. Most people here are really, really interested in growing their user base. because that's what it's all about. That's why we're all doing this. You've got an app, and there's not really any point in having an app unless you've got people using it, right? Whatever your purpose is, whether it's branding, whether it's revenue, everybody needs a user base. So let's hide these results and move on. Okay. So before we talk about building your app, the first part of our webinar, let's just do a quick overview of the app stores. There are 4 ways that a user is going to find your app within the App Store, not looking at sort of external sources of traffic. 1 is to get featured on the homepage. 2 is via the Genius system or recommended system that Apple has, and 3 is via the charts. So this is something like getting into the top 10, so that when you're on your device and you're looking at tops of categories, you come across your app, hopefully. And 4 is via search, so that when they're searching for specific terms, your app comes up in the results. So just to put sort of things into context, that's the little world that we're talking about here. Right. So part 1, it's about building your app right. Building your app for growth from day 1. And about 6 months ago, maybe 9 months ago, something like that, I came across this term in TechCrunch, and it kind of hit the nail on the head for me, because this is what it's all about. It's not so much marketing as growth hacking. And what TechCrunch has to say is that growth comes from a well-executed and data-driven product strategy, not a marketing strategy. And I absolutely agree with that. Growth should touch everything that your product touches. And the key here is to find hidden advantages in distribution by testing different things quickly, by looking at things differently, and by thinking about growth from day 1, from inception all the way out to launch and beyond. So before you even start building your app, the first thing you need to think about is, where am I going to put this thing? And we're just going to cover this really quickly because it's quite basic. But for most of us, we're looking at iOS versus Android. Some people out there might be seriously thinking about Windows 8 because Microsoft has bribed them. But for most of us, it's really going to be iOS or Android. And the one primary consideration for developers deciding between iOS and Android is going to be device fragmentation. If you decide to develop in iOS, you're going to have lower maintenance investment than in Android, because in iOS you have to design for iPad, iPod, iPad Mini now, iPhone, and now iPhone 5. So that's like five screen sizes that you have to design for. If you're going to design for Android, I mean, there are hundreds of devices out there. There is no way you're going to be able to test all of them, and it brings a unique set of problems. But beyond just the sort of development stuff, there are a couple of things to take into consideration. The really important ones here are the monetization levels. If your app has a business model, if you want people to spend money inside your app, and your revenue is coming from your consumers, you might want to think about listing it in iOS, because the demographic here is different. iOS users tend to have a little bit more money. They tend to be a little bit older, and generally, apps perform better in iOS in terms of in-app purchase, things like that, than they do in Android. On the other hand, if you've got an ad-supported app, it might do just as well in Android as in iOS, or even better. So that's the first kind of consideration: is what's your business model? How are you monetizing? Is this the right demographic for you? The second really important thing to think about is the algorithms, the search algorithms, and the ranking algorithms. So I'll talk about this more later, but your marketing strategy and your product strategy need to take into consideration that the iOS search and ranking algorithms don't work in the same way that the Google algorithms work. So before you even start building your product, think about where you're listing it and what you can do to make it most effective within that marketplace. And I'll talk about that a little bit more later. So once you've decided where to list it, it's time to build the thing, right? And obviously make a fantastic app. But there are a couple of points here in terms of what you can build within your app to automatically encourage good behavior. And the two really important things here are one, positive reviews, and two, virality. So we'll talk about positive reviews first. If a user finds your app via search or through the rankings, it's going to be much easier to convert that user if you've got a 5-star rating rather than a 1-star rating. So positive reviews are really important for your conversion rates. And I'm showing an example here. This is a Gameville app, and they do this in almost all of their games. And this is perhaps over the top, yeah. But looking at the facts, most of their apps have 4.5 or 5-star ratings. And what they're doing here is bribing their users to leave 5-star reviews with virtual currency. They've gotten a lot of bad press for it, and they do have some 1-star reviews complaining about the whole process. But it works. It achieves what they want it to achieve. And there's a really good idea in there. And the good idea is that at least remind your users to give you a 5-star review or a nice review if they're having a good time with your app. And even better, give them a warm, fuzzy feeling inside if they leave you a good review. Find a way to make it a really good experience for them. And so that's kind of the takeaway message here: is absolutely encourage your users to do something like that. The other message is you're really missing a trick if you don't allow your users to share on Twitter and Facebook really easily. Give them lots of opportunities to share with their friends things that their friends will find interesting. And if you don't include these mechanisms, you're really missing some freebies here. And it's really important for natural growth of your app. And finally, push notifications. They're great for virality. Remind people to leave reviews, remind people to share. And they can be quite powerful depending upon what your app is. And the last point here is listen to your consumers. There's kind of a tendency as developers who we're really proud of our app, or marketers, we're really proud of our app, and we get 1-star reviews because you will get 1-star reviews from some people. And there's a tendency to look at these reviews and go, these people are so stupid. Maybe they're pointing out the obvious, whatever the case may be. But the fact is that your consumers, that person that left that 1-star review, is your consumer. You have to listen to them if you want to succeed. So there is no way in iOS to respond to negative reviews and to explain. So you need to change your app. You need to change the interface so that isn't a problem for your consumers. Because it's maybe easier for you to swallow that they're stupid, but the right business decision is to change the way your app functions. So that's a little bit about including mechanisms inside your app to get your users to do the kinds of things that you want them to do. And I'm going to talk about getting featured for just a second, because it's really, really, really fantastic if it happens. You can get hundreds of thousands of downloads in a very short space of time if Apple or if Google decide to feature you on the homepage. There are a few things you can do to encourage Apple or Google to feature you. The most important thing is have a fantastic app. It's a beautiful app with really cool features. And this is in iOS. This is especially true if you've got a feature that shows off their hardware. Apple love their phones, especially if you're a big brand name and you include a feature that really shows off how cool an iPhone is. You're a lot more likely to get featured. However, there is still a lot of luck involved. You can't bribe them to feature you. So my real advice here is that if you've built an Android and you can't get a feature on the front page of Google, go and talk to Amazon, go and talk to GetJar, because these guys have less volume than Amazon do, than Google Play do, but they're more willing to play ball, and they can still drive some good downloads for you. I know that Amazon.com, for example, have the free for 24 hours thing on the front page of their app store. And if you've got a good app that's paid and you can make it free and it really adds value for their users, they'll talk to you about it. So it's worth exploring. Right. So part 2 is about how to list your app. So we've built a fantastic app. It works, and now we're going to list it. And this is about how to make sure that you play the rules of the game, that you know the way the algorithms work, etc., for maximum growth. And I actually think we're going to talk a lot about conversion. And when I say conversion, I'm not just talking about conversion to download or conversion to purchase. I'm talking about conversion from click. So all of these things require conversion. Talk the conversion discussion. So I want to just conduct another quick poll to keep everybody interested. And so any discussion about conversion has got to involve tracking. And we're going to talk about tracking a bit in this section and a bit in the last section. So right now it would just be really interesting to find out how many people are using tracking, and what kind of tracking are you using to attribute any sort of in-app activity back to the channel where it came from. So I'll just leave it open for a couple of minutes. This is you can only answer one on this one. The last one was multiple choice, and this one is one choice. So we're just going to leave it open for maybe 30 more seconds. We've got about half of people have voted. Okay, I'm going to close it now. If you want to vote, you got to vote now. Okay, closing. And we'll just share the results. So it's actually really interesting. We've got a fairly even split between different types of solutions, and also I have no idea what you're talking about. So that gives me some good information. When we get to the tracking part, I'll be really clear about it. But it's also just kind of interesting to look at how people are approaching this problem. So just think about, while we're talking about everything, think about conversion and think about tracking and how you can measure this stuff, because it is really important. Okay, so let's go back to listing. How do you list your app to make it work? One of the important things is App Store SEO, also called ASO. And the most recent evidence suggests that 63% of app downloads originate with search. That was in 2010, but I'm willing to bet that it's sort of in the right ballpark even today. So it's a little bit different between iOS and Google Play, but some of the basic principles are the same. So let's quickly run through the basic principles, and then we'll talk about the differences between iOS and Google. So basic principles: don't pick something too competitive, and don't pick something too niche. It's actually quite straightforward. So here I've just shown you an example of a really bad search term, which is game. If you try to really use game as one of your search terms, it's going to be super competitive. You're going to be competing against the likes of Temple Run and Angry Birds, and not a lot of us are in a really good position to compete against that. So you want to pick something more niche than that. But if you get too niche, then nobody's going to be searching for it. So it's all about finding a happy medium between really competitive, something everybody's searching for, and niche. So there are just some basic tips on here. I mean, the slides are going to be available later. So obviously don't use trademarks, especially in iOS, because they'll really crack down on you for it. Separate your words with commas, etc. So the differences between iOS and Google: in iOS, you get the name of your app, plays a part in your SEO, and they also give you a 100-character keyword list. This isn't a lot of space, but it's really important that you use it. And I think that's all we've got for advice on iOS. As far as Google, as far as Android, it's kind of the same as in iOS, except that your App Store description plays a part in the SEO stuff. So the general advice here from Trademob is that don't try to cram it full of keywords, it's Google. If you try to play their algorithm, you're going to lose. So there's two basic reasons. One is that Google are not going to like it if you cram the app description full of keywords. And two is that your users are really, really going to hate it as well. So it's kind of a lose-lose situation. What you want to do is explain what you do really clearly, make it really natural what the app is all about in your app description, and try to mention the keyword that you want maybe 5 times in the app store description. So once you've got your ASO right, it's time to look at the sort of your landing page and your icon. So your icon is really, really important. You've only got a couple. People are lazy. You've only got a couple of seconds to really win them over. They make a really split-second decision. So your icon has to grab them immediately for them to even click through to your landing page. So if we go, actually, I'm going to jump ahead to show you something. Wait, no, jump back. So if you look here, this is a search result in iOS, in Apple. And you can see that the decision to click on that is based only on the name of the app, the ratings. So all of these apps have very high ratings, and also the icon. So the icon really plays an important part. And here I'm just showing you a really, really bad icon. The first one is Christmas FM. And the really bad thing about this is that this bit below it is just completely illegible. And I spent a long time trying to figure out what it said when I was making these slides. And I thought it said, enjoy the magic of Christmas. But actually, I've just realized that it says, bringing you the magic of Christmas, which makes more sense. But that's not going to compel anybody to click that blurry smudge underneath the title of the app. So really basic, got to be legible. Remember your screen size. I mean, these have been blown up as well. It needs to be compelling, and it wants to tell a story about what you do with your app. It wants to be relevant to what you're doing. It wants to be attractive, memorable, and also you want to check out what your competitors are doing. And this is not just in terms of your competitors in your category or in your vertical, but also looking back at this page. Look at competitors in your search terms, so that you can stand out from what they're doing, and that user is going to click on your icon instead of theirs. So just looking at a good example, Instagram. Everybody immediately recognizes Instagram. It's a beautiful icon. The other aspect of your icon is that it represents your app on the user's device. And if you're lucky enough to land on their home screen, this is your icon alone could drive a lot of engagement for you. And what that has to do with growth is engagement is shares, engagement is positive reviews, engagement is users telling their friends about you. So your icon is really, really, really important. It's important to get it right. If this is absolutely something that you should have a professional design. And moving on from the icon to the rest of your landing page. Again, even after the user has made the psychological commitment to click, they're not so attached to your app that they're definitely going to download it. In fact, download rates are not super high once they've clicked. So you again only have a few seconds to really grab them and get them to download. So your landing page is really important. And in iOS 6 and in Google Play, your graphics are really, really, really important. If you're using language or currency in your graphics, make sure that they're localized. I've just got a quick sort of example of what not to do in your landing page. One of my clients, they spent a lot of time localizing their app for a small country because they got good conversion rates there, but they forgot to localize their landing page. We ran some campaigns with them. They fixed the problem, and then overnight they saw their conversion rates improve by a factor of 10. So that means 10 times as many people were downloading on day 2 than were downloading on day 1. So it really is, with stuff like localization, it's kind of a game changer. But even with small stuff, you can still grab percentage points to improve your conversion rates. And again, check out your competitors. Make sure that your landing page is better and more compelling than theirs. So, excuse me, we've built a perfect app and we've listed it to all the strengths of the App Store. Unfortunately, unless you're really, really, really lucky or have incredible brand visibility, maybe your Facebook, this is not going to be enough. If you want to get really good volumes of traffic to your App Store page, you're going to have to look elsewhere. So this part of our little presentation is about driving traffic from outside the App Store to the App Store. And we're talking about not just traffic that you can buy, but also free traffic, whether it's PR, Facebook, anything. This is anything having to do with taking traffic from outside of the App Store and driving them to your landing page. First thing, especially on iOS, because of the horrible waiting period for approval, there's a tendency to want to let the cat out of the bag as soon as you get approval. And I think for your launch campaign, it doesn't take a super long time to plan this kind of stuff. It really, really is worth taking a few weeks, planning the campaign properly, and then launching. You have one window of opportunity where your product is completely new and interesting, and your conversion rates are going to be higher. If you let the cat out of the bag too early, you kind of blow your opportunity. So that's basically the advice here: is plan your launch. You got one shot, do it right. In terms of practical details, some good ideas are generate a buzz before, maybe a Facebook page, a Twitter page, a handle, and give people the opportunity to sign up for an email list so that they find out the second that your app is released, stuff like that. And another really, really important point here is debug. If you launch your app and it's got a really horrible bug, you're going to get a lot of really bad reviews because you're going to get reviews that say like your app crashes on launch or whatever it does. It's really, really hard to bounce back from something like that. It's much better for your app, for your conversion, for your monetization, if you start with excellent reviews. So really debug, make sure that it's squeaky clean before you let it go. And then you might have to use creatives for anything that you're going to have to drive external traffic. You'll need to use creatives. And here I've got ad banners, which you can swap or you can buy. But the same principles kind of apply for wherever you're sourcing external traffic. The first one is really know your purpose. Who are you after here? Which demographic are you after? And what are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to just achieve clicks? Or are you actually trying to achieve downloads? Are you trying to achieve in-app purchases? Are you trying to grow your user base? So just to demonstrate the point, if you put naked ladies on a banner, you'll get a lot of clicks. If you put free iPads on a banner, you're going to get a lot of clicks. And you're going to pay a lot of money for those clicks, but they're not going to lead to the desired result. So think about what you want to happen after click and optimize your banners for that. Just to sort of demonstrate the next point, which is learn the geography of a really good banner. The basic point. I'm going to talk about this Muller ad here. They've arguably kind of made a mistake on some of the basics here of the geography of an ad banner. Again, with legibility, this was a 320 by 50 ad banner. This is tiny. I wouldn't even be able to read that if it was in the real size. So instead of just saying yogurt exclamation point, they've decided to go with try our entire range of thick and creamy Muller yogurts brought to you by Quaker. And I think that's not been optimized for a mobile device. Really think about how much space you've got and where you're going with it. And just to talk about the next point, which is targeting your users, which demographic are you after? Looking at the Audible banners on the left here, they have in the green banner at the bottom, they're clearly advertising on Android. The most popular audiobook app on the Android market is apparently Steve Jobs. So they've decided to advertise with with Steve Jobs to their Android users. Now that they probably knew what they were doing, and they absolutely had a discussion about it before it went out. But the point is, think about who's looking at this banner. Here it's Android users looking at this banner, and they're seeing Steve Jobs. The final point here is about testing. So you need to track results. We had this little conversation. This is where if you had no idea what I was talking about, I'm going to tell you what I was talking about right now. So we've got these examples at the bottom here, which are examples from CBS, and they have changed two tiny words. They've changed download to get episodes. We have no idea what kind of difference this made to their campaign, but the only way you can find out is by testing. So you need to track performance. You can track clicks, on a very basic level. You can track just clicks. Are we getting more clicks with download on iTunes? Are we getting more clicks with get episodes on iTunes? But as we just discussed, what we really care about is engaging our users, is getting downloads. So if you want to track something meaningful, track beyond click. Try to track what happens after user clicks. Are they going on to download your app? Are they going on to engage with your app? And the second part of that tracking explanation is make sure you attribute that action, whether it's install, whether it's in-app purchase, whether it's registration, track that action and attribute it back to the place where you bought it or sourced it. That way you know what's working. Because it's not just about the ad banner, it's also about where you put the ad banner. And I hope if anybody's got any questions about that, I'm happy to answer them at the end, because it's quite a sort of a fundamental part of testing and making sure that you're advertising in the best way. Just this is not so much to do with creatives or traditional advertising, and this only applies to iOS. Right now I'm going to talk about a boost campaign. We call it a smart boost campaign at Trademob because we do it in a very specific way. Internationally, it's known kind of as a burst campaign, and this only works in iOS. And it's a really important technique in iOS that a lot of people are using, so that if you're not using it, if you don't know about it, it's really important that you at least consider it. So in iOS, the general thinking, industry thinking, is that the ranking algorithm works on a weighted 4-day rolling average, with today being weighted the most. So the last 24 hours are worth like 75%, and the 24 hours before that are worth like 50%, whatever the case may be. And what that means practically on the ground is that A, the rankings are quite volatile in iOS, and B, if you throw a lot of money at it or do a really good PR campaign in one day, you can get yourself into the top of the charts because you can buy enough rankings, enough downloads. The reason that this doesn't work in Android is because the ranking algorithm, Google being Google, have taken into consideration a lot more than just downloads. They take into consideration things like user engagement, ratings, all that kind of good stuff. They take that into consideration. So it's not really possible to climb the charts that quickly. In iOS, Apple has released some stuff that says, oh, they're taking engagement into consideration, etc. The evidence, the campaigns that we've run, for example, just completely contradict that. It still is primarily, the rankings are primarily run by how many downloads you get in 24 hours. So the take-home point here is that if you can buy good traffic to boost yourself in the charts, you'll get additional organic traffic from being in the top 10 or the top 5, whatever ranking is right for you. So with this kind of campaign, your cost per install, your cost per loyal user just drops really far down, and it's one of the most effective ways to acquire installs in terms of how much it costs you. And just to make a note on the user and profit maximizing zone, for some apps, it becomes very expensive to achieve downloads beyond a certain threshold. So, for example, if you've got an app and you're advertising it in the UK, hypothetically, it takes you, say, 20,000 downloads to get into top 10. You may be able to acquire 15,000 downloads at X price, but the next 5,000 downloads might cost you X plus $10 each. And for very few apps, does that make any sense to buy 5,000 downloads at a ridiculous price? So for some apps, it makes a lot more sense to try to go for top 25 or top 50 rather than top 10. I'm also going to take a minute, just moving on from a burst campaign, I'm going to take a minute and talk about traffic sources, because traffic sources can be quite confusing for people that are either coming from desktop advertising or are fresh to mobile. So it's important to understand where you can buy traffic if you're buying traffic, where you can get traffic for free, because it's really easy to spend thousands of dollars in seconds through some networks and not see a lot for your expense. So just to do kind of an overview here, we've got a few different kinds of traffic sources. We've got ad networks, we've got kind of alternative traffic sources, and there are a few different ways to pay for it. So just a quick note on ad networks from online. Some of them say they have mobile traffic, most of them don't. So if you've been doing work in online and you're moving to mobile, you should probably start from scratch and look at the networks that are pure mobile networks, because they've got more inventory, probably better quality inventory as well. So networks in mobile are typically premium, blind, or premium blind. Premium means you get to see exactly where your ad banner or whatever kind of ad you're running lands, which website or app it lands on. This tends to be expensive, but high quality. Blind, cheaper. You have no idea where it lands. It could be anywhere. And premium blind, which is priced in between premium and blind. And you get kind of a walled garden of where your app might show up. So you get a list of publishers that your app could be on. The overlapping, there is some overlapping inventory. So if you list an app on a blind network, it might very well show up on a premium publisher site, but not the other way around. And then to talk about other traffic sources, we've got promotional apps, large indies, affiliate networks, and some sort of independent exchange sites. So promo apps, these are basically apps that advertise other apps in a way that the user likes. And they get really high conversion rates, much better than regular ad banners. And one of the keys here is that they send out a push notification typically every day to remind their users that your wonderful, amazing, beautiful app is there waiting for them. And this kind of traffic lends itself really well to burst campaigns in iOS. We've got some large indies that sometimes it makes more sense to work with them directly. They've got such vast quantities of traffic that it's better for everybody if they have independent relationships with their advertisers. Affiliate networks, they sometimes work on a CPA basis, which is great, but the volumes tend to be lower. And I'll talk about all of the acronyms in just a second. And then I did mention that there are some exchange websites, platforms, where especially if you're a game or an indie, you can swap ads with other developers. And it's a really good way to get to source traffic if you haven't got a budget. So how to pay. If you're going to pay for stuff, you can always pay in good old eCPM, which is cost per 1,000 impressions, 1,000 views of your ad banner. This tends to be quite expensive. And of course, premium networks tend to charge in eCPM. We've got CPC, which is cost per click. We've got CPI, which is cost per download, which is fantastic, but the volumes aren't as high. There's not as much inventory available. And we've also got CPA or CPX, which is where you actually only pay for whatever action is important to you. I've even seen campaigns where a car maker has paid a certain price for getting a user to sign up for a test drive. So action can be quite specific, but again, the volume is quite low. And just a quick note on click fraud: it's not a new problem. It's part of mobile. It's part of desktop. Um, and this is where you've got shady publishers reporting clicks that haven't actually happened. And we did a study that suggests that it makes up typically around 20% of your budget. And the last sort of point about sourcing external traffic is coming back to the tracking. So in order for you to understand how effective any of the marketing activity that you do is, you've got to be able to track it, to track not just install or click, but to track what happens after install. And you need to be able to attribute that to the channel that it came from. And the second half of that is that you need to use that data, use what you've learned about your advertising, and adjust. So if you're running a campaign that's not working, maybe you're getting lots and lots of clicks, but nothing's happening. Maybe it's click fraud. You need to pull the plug on that campaign, and it's about campaign transparency. It's about understanding, where you're spending your time and your money. Is it working or is it not working? And then fix it. There are a lot of companies that are doing no tracking. There are a lot of companies that are doing very little tracking, and all it will do is save you money and make your advertising more effective. So, just to kind of recap the whole thing, this should say the 10 suggestions checklist. 1, pick the right app store. Think about your demographic. Think about the algorithms and how you're going to market this thing. 2, get featured. It's kind of a long shot and it takes a lot of luck, but if you do it, it's fantastic for your app. 3 is build smart and try to incorporate mechanisms for growth and positive reviews within your app, and it will make your whole, growing your whole user base a lot easier. 4 is do your launch campaign right. Don't let it out of the bag too early. Just take a couple of extra weeks, plan it out, debug, and then go. 5 is optimize your landing page and your icon because you've only got a couple of seconds. Once the user has clicked through or discovered your icon in search results, it's a fantastic opportunity. You've got 2 seconds. Don't lose them. App Store SEO, make sure that you play the rules of the game. The app stores work in different way. Make sure that you understand it and list in absolutely the most effective way possible. Understand where you can get external traffic because it's quite easy to lose a lot of money very quickly and for nothing to happen. So you probably will need to drive some traffic to your App Store landing page. Do some research about the whole universe of App Store traffic before you spend any money. Make sure that your creatives are optimized. Creatives are really important. Again, you've only got a couple of seconds. Make sure that your creatives are compelling and legible, and you've got the objective in mind, not just clicks, because naked ladies, your iPads will get you lots of clicks, but not the desired results. If you're operating in iOS, number 9 is Smart Boost. Do a burst campaign, try it. This works for a lot of developers, and if you haven't considered it, you should probably think about doing it. And 10 is track and optimize. Keep track of what you're doing. Understand what's working, what's not working. Do more of what's working. And as far as optimization, you can do it by hand, but having a really good piece of kit to handle all of the data is for automated optimization is usually more effective. You get more percentage points that way than with doing it by hand. And if anything really spiked your interest here, we've got a couple of papers that we've released. We've got basically the tips that were in this webinar in Be the Best in Your Mobile App Marketing. We've also got a click fraud study that got quite a lot of press coverage because not a lot of people are talking about click fraud right now. It's kind of like the elephant in the room. So it's a really good read actually, and if you're interested in click fraud, you should check it out. And then a case study in how effective a burst campaign can be. Now it's time for questions, if we've got any time. And if anybody's in London near Covent Garden, send me an email. We'll grab a cup of coffee, or you can always email me questions. I'm happy to have a chat. Rachel? Rachel?
Hi there.
Hiya. Have we got any questions that we should
Yeah, we
answer?
have. We've got a couple coming through actually. The first one is how do you get rid of click fraud?
Um, we're one of the first companies on the market actually providing a click fraud protection system. Um, and there are a couple of ways you can do it. We actually use two ways. One is that we flag up anything with really low conversion that goes through our system. We're talking 0.1% or lower. Um, that's ridiculous, really. There's no reason to spend any money on a source like that. So we do some we have our tech people look at the traffic and flag up whether there are some markers of click fraud where you can tell if that's coming directly from a server or if it's coming lots and lots of clicks at the wrong time of day, something like that, or maybe it's in the wrong geo. You targeted for UK and it clearly came from China. um, that kind of stuff allows us to blacklist publishers. So we blacklist shady publishers on the one hand, uh, looking at really low conversion rates. And then on the other hand, we actually have an automated optimization engine. So it tends to, aside from the blacklisting, we tend to spend very little on click fraud over time, because the stuff that's not converting is automatically kicked out of the system. Is that clear?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's good. We also have, can you define a
Oh, I'm
newsletter sign?
sorry. I've just seen some comments about Windows 8. I was just joking. That I actually think Microsoft are. Can I answer this one real quick? Because I've just seen the. Is that okay, Rachel?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
No, I think Windows and Microsoft are doing a fantastic job of launching their app store, and I'm actually a believer that they're going to get significant market share in 6 months or a year. But right now, they actually are aggressively encouraging developers to develop in Windows 8, and I think it's absolutely the right thing to do. And Brad went a little bit far, but they're being really strong about it, if that makes sense. So sorry for that reference if that was offensive.
Okay. Another question that we have is, can you define a newsletter sign up as a CPX? And if so, is Trademob able to track that?
It depends where it comes from. Um, I think that there are any theoretically anything on the mobile we can track, but for things like a newsletter sign up from an email, for example, there are really good existing systems out there that can track that for you. And what we tend to do is because we do one thing very well, which is track and optimize for native applications. And there are existing systems that can handle that kind of stuff. So what we tend to do is integrate our data with their data and make it like for like, so that you can compare your app tracking stuff to your email tracking stuff, if that makes sense. So we could track that for you, but you might be better off
Yeah,
going.
that's
Okay.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, and another question is, if I start a campaign with Trademob, is your mention tracking for free?
Um, if you start a campaign with us, absolutely. Yep.
Okay, that's great. If anybody has any more last minute questions, send them in. We're absolutely happy to answer them.
Um, I
So
can
yeah, just
I can see a few here. Um, we've got a lot of questions on average CPI. We've got a lot of questions on incentivized downloads. Um, to cover the CPI questions, just quickly, there aren't. It's really hard to get to an average CPI. It depends where you're buying your traffic. So the general rule is that the lower the volumes that you want, the lower the price you can get. As you want more volume, you're going to have to pay more. And what we do is optimize to try to bring your CPI back down, so that the more data we have, we can really lower your CPIs. Incentivized downloads tend to be a lot cheaper, more readily available, fixed price, but they don't really work well for you in Google Play. And on the other hand, they might be a really good idea in iOS sometimes for burst campaigns, if that makes sense. Do we have any more sort of general questions, Rachel?
No, I think that's everything. Like I said, if anyone wants to shoot any over or email Adrian when they have a free minute, absolutely feel free. But at the moment, that's everything.
Okay, great. Yep, please do send me an email. I'm quite happy to answer questions. Um, and again, if you're in London, send me an email. Give me a call. We'll have coffee. Okay, thanks everybody. I'm going to go ahead and stop the webinar.